Hello, everybody. Yes, I know. I keep saying, hey, I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back. And then I ghost y'all for like 2 months, 3 months. Okay, which we're going to talk about this today, actually. Okay, so this is going to be a very raw, you know. There we go. Sorry, I had to put my other headphone in. But this is going to be a somewhat of a raw. So, the reason that is we're going to go over a couple of topics. For one, seasonal sad is one thing that I'm struggling with right now. And you're like, Lotus, it's spring. Everything is bursting to life. Yes, and my body's like, you know what? This would be a really good time to just like evaluate the past 10 years of your life. And just, yeah. So, anyways, but hey, I'm here, right? But what I really wanted to talk about is burnout, identity crisis, and just kind of being over, or I don't know, it feels like there's been this filter that's been on like social media and everything, and it's just been ripped off, and now it's just all fake. It's fake, it's a popularity contest. I'm not going into all that, but in general, it sucks, right? But there are also these things which I'm about to look up. Okay, so for one, we're going to start it out with something that some people may have heard, other people may not, which is called the Dark Night of the Soul. So I'm going to read a couple of things. The first one's going to be from Wikipedia. The Dark Night of the Soul is a phase of passive purification in the mystical development of the individual spirit, according to the 16th century Spanish mystic and Catholic poet Saint something. The phrase Dark Night of the Soul is often used informally to describe an extremely difficult and painful period in one's life. For an example, after the death of a loved one, the breakup of a marriage, or the diagnosis of a life-threatening illness. The Dark Night of a Soul refers to a profound and painful period of spirituality or personal crisis, characterized by the feeling of emptiness, despair, and a sense of being disconnected from our usual sense of purpose, meaning, or connection to the divine, whatever that means to you. So, it's kind of like depression. Okay, so here we go. We're going to go through some of the stages. Also, by the way, I'm not saying this is depression. If you are experiencing symptoms or signs of depression for the very first time, or if yours is coming back, if you can, please seek any, mental place and or medical professional, okay? Because we, as spiritual as we are, magic can only go so far. Sometimes we gotta go to the pharmaceuticals and therapy, okay? But specifically, I'm trying to get to make sure the microphone's not too close. It's a learning curve, right? The Dark Night of the Soul, a term for mystics described as a period of intense spiritual crisis characterized by confusion, despair, or a feeling of being disconnected from one's usual sense of purpose or connection with the divine. While the experience is often described as a single profound stage, it also seen as a process with phases. Alright, so there is the active night of senses. The initial phase invokes purification of the sense, often marked by disenchantment from worldly desires and attachments. Achieve the night of the spirit. This is more intense purification of the spirit, involving a deeper unsuffering and surrendering to the divine will, and then the passive night of the spirit. This phase occurs between illumination and union, where the presence of God is felt but not yet stable. Okay, so we're going to keep the whole God thing out of this, because, as the spiritual sense. But the purpose of it, if I understand it, it's a transformational experience, often leading to a deeper understanding of oneself and a renewed sense of purpose, right? So, to some, this would be like, oh my God, this is the spiritual awakening. And it theoretically could be, except for, so with spiritual awakenings, there's ups and downs, right? This is kind of different. So imagine all the shadow workers out there who, you're all doing your shadow work. By the way, I'm not making fun of you. It's just shadow work is not a requirement for witchcraft, okay? It never has been. It's never been part of the practice. Do you honestly think the witches in the 14th, 13th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th century were worrying about their shadow selves? No, they were not. I'm just going to leave it there, okay? They were not. But anyways, and specifically for any person who has experienced PTSD and or trauma during the development stages of the ego, shadow work's not really going to work for you due to the fact that since you experienced that type of trauma, your ego did not fully develop like a normal, like a person who did not go through that trauma would have. So theoretically, it could actually do more damage, right? But specifically, you get into this point where, for one, everything becomes gray or numb, right? These are those moments where it also, or specifically what I've experienced, it kind of feels like you're disconnected, but not from like, oh, you're disconnected from spirit, you're disconnected from the universe. No, 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 no. It's more along the lines of it's like a disconnect from the world around you. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying like I believe that I'm this ultimate being or anything like that. It just means that the spark's not really there, right? It kind of goes dim. Not dark, dim. And then other things start to be highlighted. And that's what I mean by it almost is like a filter has been ripped away. And you kind of see all these things that you were drawn to, all these things that, you know, capture, all these things that kept you interested, all goes numb, right? So the best way I can describe it, it's almost like a very, very intense mixture of a depressive episode mixed with a spiritual sense, because in some ways it's somewhat of an ego death to a degree, okay? And that kind of, or what I'm going through right now, which also we're going to get into the burnout and the identity crisis, which is kind of where I'm at now, which is, so for the longest time, I was just known as, obviously, my governmental name, and then now most people know me as either Lotus or Fire Lotus, right? But there's the witch term after that. Now, I could go into an entire detail of the reason that I created that name. That name specifically, I'm an Aries, and I love fire, right? I love burning things. I love the transformation of it. I love the wild, just craziness of fire itself. It's destructive, but at the same time, it's creative, right? Okay, so there's the fire. Lotus is because I've always been drawn to the lotus flower. And one of the main reasons that is because for a lot of people, if you do not know this, lotus flowers, they start out in the dark, deep mud and dirt of the body of water that they're in. Okay? They bust out of the soil, and they basically spend the majority of their life trying to go upward to break the surface and then blossom. If I were to ever sit down and do episodes of all the shit that I've been through in my life, it literally describes me, right? So there's Fire Lotus, and then the witch was to specifically kind of state, hey, this is what I'm about, witchcraft. For anybody who does not know, I have been practicing witchcraft, and this is not a flex, okay? But it's just, you'll understand. I started researching it at the ages of 11 and 12, and fully came out of the broom closet at the age of 13, and this past April, I just turned 32. So I want to say 21, 22 years, witchcraft has been my life. Witchcraft saved me in so many ways. Instead of going out when I was a teenager and trying to go to these house parties, I was trying to spend as much time on the laptop or the computer at the library researching as much information as I could about witchcraft. So, not to mention, during my depressive episodes when I was younger, which were way worse, knock on wood, than I've experienced recently, it was something that I could latch on to. And I moved a lot, even when I was a teenager, and it was just always there for me. It's something that I've never put down. And honestly, it's one of the only things in my entire life that I just have a natural ability at it, right? So, for the longest time, that is me. And then I get into a very toxic love-hate relationship with an app, TikTok. And it did not always used to be that way. It used to be just a bunch of witches who kind of had my experience where we didn't really find other witches in our day-to-day lives. And it gave us a platform. It gave us a platform in a way no other platform had, where we would connect and just openly have these fascinating conversations. And then obviously, it's like all good things, the fun conversations went into, no, you're wrong, I'm right, I know this. No, you're wrong, I'm right, I know this. And then it just became a pissing competition, and or a who looks more like a witch, who, there are some people I call, and this is enduring, okay, this is not a bad thing, I call them scholar witches. And these are the types of people that you bring up a subject, they're going to tell you who was the creator, what year it was created, and all this deep detail. That's not me, okay? That's just not, my brain doesn't work that way. I know all the information, but I just don't hold on to it like that. And then came the very weird phenomenon that a lot of people still have not gotten used to, which is just because you perceive a person's age does not dictate that age, right? When I first joined TikTok, most people, and it kind of sucks because some of these people were actually my elders, as in they were older than I was, right? They automatically thought that I was just like teenager. They thought that I was like maybe 19, maybe 18. No, I was already in my like mid 20s when I joined TikTok. But due to the fact that I don't really look my age, knock on wood, that is a blessing. I'm not hating it. A lot of people automatically thought that I was just this, person who sometimes they call witch talker or pandemic witches. These were the people, whether they're actually practicing witchcraft or they realized they saw the trend of witchcraft practice or trending, they started researching and just called themselves a witch. And I know that in itself, that one subject brings up the uncomfortable thing, which is, well, wait, Lotus, they have been studying witchcraft. Does that not make them a witch? In my definition, not yet. You can study as much as you want, but you have to get to a point where the studying becomes applying to your life. You have to learn how to apply through trial and error the stuff you've learned in books and literally apply that to your life, right? Doing spell work, which all the stuff that I'm about to say doesn't inherently make you a witch, but spell work, the rituals, the rites, right? And rituals and rites are different for everybody. But there's a lot of people who went out, spent money on the aesthetic aspect, the look of what most modern day people think a witch is, and then their brains are really, really good at just repeating that knowledge, right? But see, there's the flaw with that. I believe if you are teaching or you are a mentor on a platform, you have to have a specific years up under your belt. And what I mean by that is not just the specific amount of studying. You have to be able to learn and apply it because, again, books are only going to teach you certain things. And most books written, there are a lot of different ones, but most of them are just witchcraft in a different perspective, right? It's a different lens. But as we all know, again, if you watch the YouTube video that I did about the signs were the signs were always there, my path down to mediumship, I had a question one day, a comment left on one of my posts, which was, well, hey, I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. I've been reading and grounding like the Psychic Witch, the book says, and it's just not working. It's because not all the techniques and resources you're going to find, they're not going to work with you. And I always go back to public school. Public school failed so many people because, especially back in my day, ADHD and, all these other learning disorders, they were not considered that. They're like, oh, he's very hyper. We'll give him some ADHD medication and that'll fix it. I mean, in certain ways, yeah, it fixed it, but they didn't hone in on that I learn differently than a lot of other people. And we all have been through this before, right? I'm a very visual learner, as in show me one or two times how to do something and I'll typically clip on to it. But you give me 30 minutes out of a book and then say, here, do it, I'm going to look at you like you're crazy because I'm going to be like, nope, not computing, right? So you have to learn how to apply that. And then imposter syndrome reared its ugly head. What is imposter syndrome? And because I'm trying to be more professional and shit like that, I'm going to give you the definition in 2 seconds.
The persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills.
Okay, so for anybody who did not catch that, it's a psychological experience that causes people to doubt their skills and success. An example of this, say you have been studying for a test, or say you have been working at this company for over 2 years, specifically trying to become a manager, right? And then the district manager, the corporate manager comes in and puts you on the spot, and you're like, hey, show me what you got. And then all of a sudden your brain looks at you and you're like, you're a fucking imposter. you shouldn't be here. You don't deserve this. But in reality, in every waking existence, you do. You put in the work, you learn the knowledge, trial and error. You were made for this, right? Imposter syndrome happens specifically and it's another thing that I wish somebody would have told me. It's when a witch goes from being like a solitary practitioner or having a small group to growing on a platform. For anybody who doesn't not know, and this is not a flex because I have a very hard time wrapping my brain around like number value. I originally started technically with Fire Lotus on Instagram. That went over to YouTube, and then that went over to my Facebook page, Fire Lotus the Witch, or Meta page. In that page is eventually where all the stepping stones that would eventually lead me to what I'm doing right now landed. And I went from starting out, I think I started TikTok in 2020. I am currently sitting at 39.9 thousand followers. I'm very close to breaking 40,000 followers, right? That's not talking about the 1,000 followers on my Facebook page and YouTube, and I think I'm almost about to break 2,000 on Instagram. And again, none of this reflects because the platforms have changed so much, but it's also the amount of time and energy that I put in to putting that content. Luckily, my life set up to a position a few years ago where, because I have mental shenanigans, I'm mentally disabled, but I was set up in a position to where at one point in time, before everything happened with my partner, the job that he had, he was able to kind of say, hey, you do what you're going to do online, I got this. And in the process, I was also trying to file for disability, right? And in one of those appointments that I had to go to, the psychiatrist told me that I needed to do something because this was also around the time that I was diagnosed with agoraphobia. For anybody who doesn't know what agoraphobia is, in my sense, it's the fear of getting into a situation that could trigger a panic attack or anxiety attack to the point where you just don't want to leave your house. You know your house is safe, and then through that, there are other what we call safe people or safe places. These are people or places, as long as we're there or with them, we're okay. We're not freaking out, right? And agoraphobia, it kind of has its flare-ups. So for the past 3 years, I haven't really dealt with it as bad. But there was sometimes when I first got diagnosed with it, I couldn't walk outside my house and like walk out in my own yard or take the trash maybe 20 steps up to where all the other neighbors put the trash cans because of that feeling, right? That feeling of what happens if my neighbor comes up and asks me something, right? Social experiments is, So all of that, but they told me you need to create something online to be an escape. That way it doesn't make your depression worse. Through that and multiple other avenues, Fire Lotus the Witch online was kind of born, right? I started doing the live witches chats and all these things. That all changed when I got on TikTok because I let my ego get the best of me in certain situations, and I basically put my foot in my mouth, and I've learned, right? I'm ever growing, ever changing, ever learning. Through the process of that, I went through, okay, well, I am an imposter because obviously people are telling me I am, and all this other shit, right? So there's the imposter syndrome. Now here comes, dun, 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 here comes the actual identity crisis. So for the longest time, I was Fire Lotus the Witch. And then I started reading cards. I've been reading cards off and on for probably 10 years now. Officially, like, offering it to other people, I want to say 4 or 5 years, maybe more, maybe less. And I started out with just being like, yo, I got an Oracle deck, $10 a full reading, and then slowly I worked up to the point where what made me originally change some of my prices to what they are now is because I had people come to me and they're like, yo, you need to charge less for this. I mean, you need to charge more for this. And I'm like, well, why? And they're like, because I've been to other people and I paid way more and got way less, right? So there's that awkward phase. In the process of me doing these readings, that was what kind of helped me. And I'd always kind of thought that I was a medium, but I didn't know how to go about it, right? I didn't know how to trigger it. Mine and how I built mine was through reading cards. I've always been good at reading Oracle cards, and you can check out my YouTube. There's a story about what made me get to the point where I did not what made me get to a point where I realized I didn't need a book. I could just read the cards. Again, I do have the claircognizant specifically, which is clear knowing. And then again, clairsentience as well. So through all this and through the years, I've eventually, again, about 2 or 3 years ago, around 29, 30, 31, I realized that, oh, fuck, wait, no, I actually am a medium, right? And then this goes into, okay, well, when I meet somebody, yes, I identify as myself as Fire Lotus the Witch, but there are some people who don't like the term witch, right? They don't want to be associated with witchcraft. But when it comes to the mediumship, they're fine with it. I don't understand it myself. I never question it, but I don't understand some of the mediums that I've met where they're like, oh, I'm not a witch. Which, again, you can be a medium and not have anything to do with witchcraft, but they're like, I'm talking to angels. Ma'am, sir, they, them, what the... Okay, if that's how you perceive that, that's how you perceive that, right? So, like, to me, it's kind of like a scapegoating or whatever, I guess. Not the point of that. And now it's gotten to the point where specifically the platforms have changed so much. And then with what I've been through in the past 4 years, for anybody who doesn't know, I think it's been 2 or 3 years now. My partner got diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. He went through chemotherapy, surgery, and then radiation. There's a lot of hiccups and hospital stays along the way, but he is completely recovered now and he is cancer-free, knock on wood. We stand right now, he's cancer-free, and hopefully he will remain cancer-free. And that in itself, it's a fucking emotional roller coaster, because about 3 years prior to that, I went through the biggest 2-year spiritual awakening of my entire life. And that was also when I discovered I was the Death Witch. And you're like, Lotus, well, how did you discover you were a Death Witch? I had a year where I was just consumed with death. Death was all around me. And it was also the very first time as an adult that I had actually experienced what death is, right? So I became my caretaker for my grandmother. She passed away. And then I had a beloved friend pass away, and then I had my aunt pass away, and then I had one of my first loves pass away unexpectedly. And it was one after the other, right? And then we went through the treatment with my partner, and through there, I kind of got to this position to where no matter what I was going through, I had to push that aside, right? I had to be the strong one. Well, now we're getting into that 2-year mark where all of that's done. So now this is like me trying to record, like go back or not go back, because you can never go back. And I tell people this in readings. A lot of the times when our lives get chaotic, we tend to try to think back to a moment in time where that perfect balance existed. The problem is you're not the same person you were when that balance existed. So you have to realize that as you grow and change, again, we are spiritual beings, ever growing, ever changing, ever expanding. Thus, the definitions of things that we use, which is balance and things like that, also change, right? And then it's also going through the spiritual motions, and for any witch who's ever gone through this, which I know there's a lot it's extremely uncomfortable when you get to that point where you're starting to realize that you're outgrowing your practice. Specifically, what I mean by that is the specific point, right? In a very strange, straggly line that is our practices, we will outgrow certain things, and then we have to expand, right? But there's also this weird thing where I'm to the point where I've created my own practice while also still trying to learn, because you will get to a point in time where you can buy as many books as you want. The knowledge is the same. That's when you kind of have to expand from outward. But due to mental shenanigans, because I don't like saying mental disorders, depression, anxiety, and all these other things, it's very hard to find that balance, right? There is no one thing that makes you a witch. You don't have to have an altar to begin with. You don't have to constantly light your candles and constantly do spell work to be considered a witch, right? I'm a medium, but I'm not connected necessarily to the spirit world all around me. Then, on top of all of that, when you become a content creator, or whether it's a podcast, a YouTube, there comes this unspoken pressure and responsibility to kind of keep up with it, right? And again, with most platforms, they want you to be consistency. Consistency does not exist in my life. Because honestly, it just gets boring, right? That, and I'm not one of these creators where, yeah, I have AI, but I can't write a script. Why? Because it's not me. And that was one thing I always told myself, and I've always told everybody that's ever watched my stuff, which is you're going to get me the way that I am. Whether that's good, the bad, and everything else in between, because I'm not going to try to paint my life as perfect. And when it comes to witchcraft, thanks to social media, there's this upheld standard almost where, oh, you can't go through depression and be live, you can't go through this and still teach. And I mean, yeah, I get it, but at the same time, you see what I'm saying? There's this pressure to where it feels like we always have to be on our Q's and toes. We always have to look the part. We always have to be, and it's just fake. It's fake, it's fake, it's fake. Nobody is that perfect. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry to pop your little bubble out there. It's not. And again, this is also why there's drafts, because, and we've talked about this kind of before, where it's like, there are some people who get into it and you'll start following a witch and you realize that they're posting spell work after ritual after spell work after all these breathtaking things, and you're like, well, fuck, I'm not doing any of that. That's because there's a thing called drafts. For anybody who is not making content, drafts is basically you make a video when you have a good day, you make as much content as you can and just hold on to it. That way, when you're going through a depressive episode or something else is happening in your life, you post that. It keeps up the perspective that everything is great. And to me, that is the fakest shit I've ever seen. I mean, not having drafts, that's not. But this aspect where you have to be perfect, you have to answer stuff perfectly, that is not me. With my ADHD and my anxiety combined, I've learned that I have to be stimulated to unlock the knowledge that I've gained over the past 20 years. Typically, that's where the lives that I used to do come into play. Because it's not me having to make content as much as somebody asks me a question, and if you've ever been in my lives, you know this, all it takes is one question. That one question could start a 2.5-hour live of just straight perspective, information, knowledge. It helps me unlock stuff in my brain. And due to how I've been feeling and a lot of other things, I haven't had the energy to do it. Not to mention, again, if you've been on any of the platforms, they changed dramatically. I used to go live on Facebook and I used to go live on YouTube constantly. I had issues with my phone, which are fixed now, but it got to the point where so many people were just using TikTok where I was just kind of sitting there and I'm like, and I do not want this to come off to anybody, because the main reason that I'm still on all of these other platforms is because I know not everybody has a TikTok. Not everybody has a Facebook. Not everybody has an Instagram, right? And it felt like I was spreading myself too thin, while also there were moments where I could go live and sit there and there only be 2 people there for like 2 hours, right? Again, it changed. And TikTok's gotten to the point now where unless you're paying them, you're not really going to go far. And I'm sorry, no offense to anybody who has promoted things out there, all of my platforms on all fronts, nothing has ever been paid for. I've never bought followers. I've never paid a platform to push my content. Because for one, even financially, I'm not there right now, right? I make no money off the TikToks or any of the content that I make unless I go live and people send me gifts, right? And I'm still awkward about that because I'm like, I'm just sitting here talking. Why are you paying me, right? The only time I get something to come in is through donations with readings and spell work. Other than that, I used to with my podcast, but Anchor was bought out by Spotify, which is now Spotify for podcasters, and they've changed my brain is not braining right now, but they changed what it takes to actually be monetized. So I'm not monetized. YouTube, I am getting closer, but you've got to have like 50,000 hours. That may be a stretch of like shorts. Basically, you've got to have a certain amount of watch time for the shorts and your videos to even attempt to be monetized for just 1,000. And at multiple points in times, it was just you hit 1,000 followers, you're monetized. They changed it. Instagram, the exact same way. So I'm going through this huge spiritual growth, basically, while also the world around me is changing and rapidly growing at a point in time where I can't keep up. Financially, I can't even keep up, right? I can't go out and buy a fucking iPhone just to have the best content. And for anybody who's confused about that statement, TikTok recently changed their standards to where you have to have like 1080 video quality. And if it's anything under than that, they're not going to push your content. They basically became 10 times stricter than they ever have before on what it takes to actually hit the FYP page and to actually be seen. And you're like, Lotus, you just said at the beginning of this, you're not a content creator, you're a teacher and a mentor. Well, yes, but at the same time, there's that checks and balances of like, if I spend this amount of time doing a video, I at least want 10% of the followers that I have to see it, when in reality, about 36 to 60 on a good day sees it. So I'm trying to change things a little bit. I'm still going to be talking about witchcraft, but I myself still have to formulate. This is the same reason I haven't written a book yet, besides I suck at spelling and punctuation. I have to learn how to access the knowledge that I do have and to be able to put that into a format that other people will understand it. Because I'm a slight perfectionist. I know you may see my content and you're like, Lotus, no, you're not. Yes, the fuck I am. You can ask my partner. I have sit down and it's taken me hours to make one 60-second video. Now I talk. And it's also another thing, and I'm sorry if y'all think I'm rambling. If you're a content creator, you'll feel this. The platforms are pushing longer term content, but due to the fact that TikTok has made ADHD 10 times worse, and nobody can sit there and actually watch the long term content. So it's that, and then you get the ban thing. Is it going to be banned? Is it not going to be banned? And then people get annoyed with the TikTok sells stuff. Again, I've been annoyed by it, but it's also the only time I'm annoyed by it is when people specifically target witches and say, oh, if you're a witch, you need this. Oh, if you see this, Mother Hecate or Nyx is reaching out to you. Possibly, but also it's somebody trying to make a buck. I'm not really going to hate on that, especially in this day and age. But social media has set a standard to where if you come across a practitioner and they don't look the certain way, if they don't talk the certain way, oh, they get overlooked. The amount of amazing practitioners that are so powerful in so many ways that get overlooked on a constant day basis is fucking mind-blowing. And I call it basically, if you don't have what I call that witchy bitchy attitude, you're not really going to grow that much. And it drives me crazy because it gets annoying. Not to mention, some of those creators, you can totally tell they're lost in their own egos right now. And I don't get that. Trauma, but I don't get that. My partner even says to me sometimes, he's like, you need to realize there are some people who look at you like a movie star. And I'm like, why? And then it's the thought process of almost 40,000 people follow me. True enough, none of them, the majority of that doesn't see it. But again, I don't see that. I'm still just a witch who's trying to help as many people as I can. So, again, I told y'all this was going to be blunt and raw, but there's a lot that goes with that. Not to mention, we square that down to I'm 32. I did not think I was going to make it past my 15th birthday, past my 20th birthday, 21st birthday, and now I'm fucking 32. It's weird, man. Life is just fucking weird. It's just weird. So that's where I'm at right now. Obviously, I'm still practicing. I'm still offering readings, and I'm trying to get back to doing these podcast episodes. And then here soon, I'll be guest starring on a few other podcasts. So just check out my socials when that happens, because I shout them out and I advertise. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. But I also want this to become normal so other people also know about it, because it's like gatekeeping, right? If you gatekeep everything, there are so many people that are going to go through this and be like, oh, well, witchcraft's not for me, and they go back to the church. Again, not hating on that, but we recently, thanks to all the political shit that's happening, and thanks to the fact that witchcraft is kind of becoming less of a trend, we're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing creators build their profiles and just completely inherently stop about the witchcraft thing. And we're not going to talk about that because I don't know what they're going through. But there are some people who used witchcraft or used the witchy community to get to a specific point and then dip out. And the way that I see it, if a creator is not helping in any way, shape, or form in some aspect with the community of witchcraft in general, whether that is simply making a video that starts a conversation, why are you in there? To grow your ego? to start drama, to start chaos, because I used to insert myself into it, and now I realize that why? They're not going to learn. You're not going to be able to change their mind. The only thing they are doing is creating distractions and chaos because they are distracted with their own lives. Or let me rephrase that. They would prefer being distracted with chaos and drama versus to actually analyze their own lives. And again, I've been at that point before, but I also realize that the content you make is the creator, as the community that you are going to grow. And if you start that community on chaos and drama, the moment in time you stop that chaos and drama, everything is going to fall apart. Not to mention, I can't stand some of the new toxic stuff in spirituality, and it's confusing as fuck, right? I used to tell people that I'm just a spiritual witch, which I am. I'm very spiritual, old school spiritual, not necessarily new age spiritual, but I'm also constantly changing and growing. You can ask me a question today, and a month later ask me the same question, and I can almost 99.9% guarantee you're going to get a different answer. Because I'm not in a religion. I don't have to have a set definition of what I believe in and what I don't. I'm still trying to figure that out. Which, I mean, is that not what life is for? Right? Figuring things out. I know death is real. I know death is only the beginning, and it's not the end. Does it scare the shit out of me? A little. I'm not even gonna lie. A little bit, right? But again, I also walk the path of a medium, so I know ancestors are busy. I've had them tell me, hey, we got to speed this up. I've got other things to do. And I'm like, hello? Rude much? No, I'm joking. I mean, sometimes it's kind of rude. Like, anyways. That's kind of where I'm at right now. And if you've been here, let me know. And the most annoying thing about everything that I just said is I know one day I will wake up and just, boom, it's all over. As in, the confusion, the identity crisis, all of it just goes away. And if you've ever been through a spiritual awakening, you will know this. Spiritual awakenings suck until the very end. And then all of a sudden, it's just like somebody touches your third eye, not literally, but it's just like, oh my God, that was so beautiful and absolutely shitty, but I get it. So yeah, that's where I am. And I don't know why, when I go to make episodes like this, I never really have a point to them, except for it almost is like I feel like somebody else out there needs to hear these exact same things to know that, hey, you're not fucking up. It's not that witchcraft is not meant for you. This is one of the changes that you go through that is not really talked about enough in books. And then the whole identity crisis. Like, I get to some degree people saying, oh, well, I'm a crystal witch. It's a witch who only works with crystals. Or I'm a green witch. I kind of get it, but at the same time, I don't. Why can't we just be witches? You see what I'm saying? It's like the whole baby witch. I don't even know why that started. It's not cutesy. It's not demure. It's degrading. You're not a baby witch. You're a seedling and sprout. Not to mention, again, and I've said this so much, it's like kicking a dead horse. When you call yourself a baby witch in front of another witch, you are automatically putting yourself down and automatically putting them ahead of you. No, that's not how this shit works. It's not. The terms that I use is seedlings, sprouts, or lotuses. And basically, that's just different stages of the path that you're in. A seedling would be like, say, the first 2 years, or the first year, right? We'll say 1 through 3. A sprout would be 3 years going into 4 and above. And then lotus would be like, I'd say mid 15 years would be like a lotus. So, yeah. Let me know, and again, if at any point in time, if you ever want to actually write into me, you can send me an email, firelotusthewitch@gmail.com, and just put podcast response. You can also book a reading with me there, booking spell work, or just simply have a magical consultation. And very soon, hopefully, I will be bringing back my spiritual advisories, which is where you can get a one-on-one 30-minute to 70-minute either phone call, video chat, and we just sit down and I help you and guide you in your actual practice. But I'm not bringing that back yet until I get my seasonal stuff taken care of. There we go. But anyways, I'm working on things in the background, by the way. But yeah, if you would like to follow me or keep up with me, or like I said, just At one point in time, I would love to do an episode on like write-ins from like paranormal experiences, witchy fails, witchy succeeds. Like, what was the very first thing that you experienced where you're like, holy shit, witchcraft is real? Like, this is real. Holy shit. Because those moments are extremely important. But we are right there at an hour, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this. But yeah, thank y'all so much for listening. Again, let me know what you think. I believe you can find this on YouTube as well. But yeah, I hope y'all are enjoying this crazy year that 2025 has been. And yeah, I'll see y'all on the flip side.